G'day everyone, welcome back to another weekly tipping video on the channel. You're here for my round 8 tips of the 2023 AFL season. If you're going to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, that'll be much appreciated. And let's kick it off with my tips from last week. Okay everyone, my tips for round 7, the ones from last week of course, and I managed to get a 7 out of 9. Starting to build a bit of consistency now with a few high scores these past few weeks or even month now. So it's good to see. Yeah, I think now with a bit more of a sample size with games, starting to make a bit better correct decisions with tips. But anyways, Friday night, tipped the Saints. Thought they could have done at home. I felt this game would be a bit of a 50-50 one. I felt Port would come to play, and they sure did. They almost went to homework on St Kilda's system, able to just not play to their terms, just bomb it down the line, win those hard balls, win those 50-50 contested balls, and just get it in there and kick goals, and they were awesome on Friday night. Where with the Brisbane Lions at home, they're too good at the moment, and Freo are just all over the shop at the moment. Bit of an identity crisis, I guess you could say. Went with the Swans, and to be honest, it's a game they really should have won. That last quarter, they looked home and hosed, but Toby Green, the superstar, and the Giants getting it done with the final 4 goals of the game to pick up a thriller of a Sydney derby by 1 point at the SCG. Went for the Bulldogs at home, just felt the better team on paper, even though I thought the Hawks could, give them a bit of a run for their money. They did, probably up to half-time. Easy tips for the Saturday night, going with the D's and the Blues. Then Sunday tips, went with Geelong against the Bombers. I felt, yeah, the Bombers would turn up to play, probably give them a bit of a scoreboard pressure. They probably did around the third term, but it was pretty much game over by half-time. Cameron and Hawkins are just the difference makers at the moment. And pretty happy with this tip. Tip the Suns. Felt confident in them to pick up the upset against the Tigers, who are just, again, playing some really poor football. Efficiency is really hurting them, and it did happen again. 2 goals not at half-time. Pretty much cost them the game with poor goal kicking, and the Suns played really good. I felt they were quite dominant and able to really take as much ground as possible. And the final game, I got tipped the Pies away. Thought they could have done close, and it was another Collingwood classic, coming back from I think 15-16 points down at 3/4 time and picking up another classic Collingwood comeback win. Righty over, and let's kick it off now with my tips for round 8. We've got some probably better matchups compared from last week. A few good looking games here, and there's a good looking one right off the bat. The Blues taking on the Lions at Marvel Stadium, Friday night football. Really big game this one. The Blues headed in as just very slight favourites, and I think you do give them that because the Marvel Stadium is their playpen. They play their best brand of footy there. But what kind of Carlton are we going to see? Are we going to see this kind of type that's just going to play slow, not really take the game on? How's 𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐼 going to fare against the Lions defence? Harris Andrews, I think, has been in some bit of form. Jack Payne and 𝘼𝐻𝐺 𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐻 have probably been quite underrated defenders so far this year. That win against the Eagles will certainly give them confidence to just back in their brand and just play some high pressure and high aggressive footy, and they need to be dominant back in those clearances. Sam Walsh, he's in pretty good form, playing pretty much everywhere around the ground. He's always there for the support between both arcs of the ground. He's huge for the Blues at the moment. Are they going to get back to their beastly clearance game against the Lions, who do have a pretty respectable midfield? It will probably be a battle for a contested game with 2 high-quality midfields on paper. As of the past month or so now, the Lions have pretty much been flawless. I know they've played a few weaker opponents, but they're starting to really get their brand going again. The high juggernaut attack that can really put on points. Midfield is really humming, and I just think the defense as of late has been improving week by week, which is always their weakness, and will certainly be a big test against pretty much a powerhouse forward line of course, 𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿. They are the difference makers for the Blues. Really hard one to tip because I just think Lions are probably playing the better footy at the moment, but how do you back them at Marvel Stadium? I do have to say, before they lost against the Bulldogs back in round 2 or 3, they've actually had a very good record at Marvel Stadium, so we can't just look at that game too much from a few weeks ago. They usually play well enough at Marvel Stadium to pick up wins, and against the Blues, who, how much do you back them after a big win against a depleted Eagles side? I'm not too sure. 50-50 game, hard one, but I might go with the away team. I think the Lions get this one done. Yeah, it's hard to think, will the Lions be good here at Marvel Stadium? Interstate, that's always been their struggle, but I just think slightly the better team on paper. For me, if they can get the better of the contested game and get their forward half working, Charlie Cameron's been in superb form. I do like their back half at the moment. I think it has been humming a bit, so I think they can nullify Charlie, Curnow and Mackay enough, and I think the Lions get the job done at Marvel Stadium Friday night. Could go either way, but I just like the Lions at the moment. We'll back them in away, interstate, and the Lions will pick up a big win on the road and win by 16 points. Now for the Saturday games, we'll kick it off. The Tigers playing the Eagles at the MCG, 1:45 PM. A pretty disappointing display from West Coast last Saturday night against the Blues. We have been saying on the channel that we've seen some improvement. We're starting to see now they're winning halves or winning patches of football here or there, but again, they were back to the worst. They were back to square one with how they played. They just look really tight at the moment. They look out of whack, look a bit out of depth as well. It's a bit of a shambles situation. They are in at the moment, the Eagles, and heading now to the MCG against the form side of the Tigers. Look, I just think simply on paper, I can't really see the Eagles winning much games from this point onwards unless it's at home. Maybe they give them a bit of a run for their money. They still play well from patches here or there. So maybe for a quarter or two, the Eagles can probably win a quarter. But for me, the Tigers, they've been dismal. They've been shocking. They've got to be bouncing back here and picking up a big win. This is just what I'm feeling at the moment with the Tigers. Damien Hardwick's a true believer in the side. He still has full belief in what they're doing. They're just lacking a lot of efficiency. And we saw, like against the Demons, the Tigers, they're able, once the efficiency's clicking, they can be a damaging side. So this is a good test for them against the Eagles. Sort of just like a bit of a test game to see, can they get their efficiency working? No disrespect to the Eagles, but I can't really see them winning it. So I think the Tigers, get things into gear and pick up I wouldn't say thumping. I think the Eagles will be a bit more a respectable team in this Saturday afternoon matchup. We'll go the Tigers to pick it up though and win by 42 points. Next Saturday game, a really intriguing one here. The Cats taking on the Crows at 𝐼𝐴 Stadium. Instantly Geelong at 𝐼𝐴, you just punch them in for the quick tip. Simple as that. Safe tip, safe option. But the Crows, it's an interesting one. They're still one of the top teams when going inside 50. Their efficiency, if you look at all their losses this year, the Crows, the losses they've had was because of bad kicking. They've always been in games, so they seriously could be a team that's generally a top 4 side. We don't know that, but when their goal kicking is on, when they get things going well in their forward half, they can be a damaging side. But against the Cats at their playpen at 𝐼𝐴, it's hard to see them pick up this win here. I do like the look of their midfield though. I think they've had some workhorses in there. Rochelle into that midfield has been fantastic. Dawson as well. If they're more accurate against the Pies, they probably should have won that by 5 or 6 goals, and if they won by that margin, maybe the margins or maybe the expectations for Adelaide in this game would be a lot more, in their favour. Similar to last year, a team up and rising from Freo of 2022, they managed to knock off the Cats here at 𝐼𝐴. And just looking at this matchup, it gives me instant vibes of, can Adelaide head to the Cats playpen and pick up an historic win? But for me, just Paddy Dangerfield is back to his prime. Cameron and Hawkins is such a difficult matchup in the moment. I just look at those 3 key players. They're the difference makers for the Cats, and a few of their role players are really starting to stand out now. Brian Myers, I think, has had a very underrated start to the year. Bro Close starting to show an impact. I know they still have a few outs, but 𝐼𝐴's been great down back. I just think at home, a little bit better on paper. I think the Cats will put on a bit of a masterclass here and really show it to Adelaide. But I think the Crows come to play with a bit of no fear. I still think the Crows are one of those sides with very low expectations. I just think Geelong are the bit better at home. We'll go with the safe tip. Cats get it done in a good game of footy, but eventually they flex their muscles and win by 18 points. Next game we've got up in the Gold Coast, the Suns taking on the D's at, of course, Heritage Bank Stadium. Now the Suns, I've always been saying on the channel, they have been a very underappreciated side. I think all their losses this year, they've been able to show something in games, but they've just let things fall apart. We saw that against the Saints, saw that against Essendon at Marvel Stadium. They got a much deserved win against the Tigers, and that gives them confidence here at home, and they've been very good at home as of late. They smashed the Kangaroos. They beat, of course, Geelong, whilst they're, not in the greatest of form, but still knocking off the Cats is very respectable. Now they face the D's, and they're a tough team to beat at home. Obviously, these two sides last year, the Suns, I think, only went down by around 2 goals. So I think this is actually going to be a bit of a, really solid hit out against the D's, but they are flying at the moment. They're in very good form. They're just playing well across every areas of the ground, and almost a huge 100-point win against North Melbourne. They're in full confidence, in full swing. I just don't think they'll drop this game against the Suns, even though it is away. I still think it'll be close though. Gold Coast clearance game has been exceptional. They really did own possession against the Tigers, but I don't know how that's going to fare with, especially the Demons' forward half pressure has been through the roof, and they've just, they're in terrific form, the Demons. Hard to go against them. I think it'll be close though. I'll go the Demons to pick up a hard-fought win up in the Gold Coast by 13 points. Saturday night now, we have the Giants taking on the Western Bulldogs, the old classic, well, not old, but modern rivalry. This certainly is. These two teams absolutely hate each other at Manuka Oval. Good to see another game in Canberra, the best city in Australia. You can probably detect the sarcasm there. But anyways, the Giants, yeah, I think that win against the Swans was fantastic. They were really in that game. They were leading at half-time, leading at quarter-time. Probably just the class of the Swans got the better of them in that third term, but just how they were able to work their way back into the game off the back of Toby Green, who's just an absolute superstar. Work rate is through the roof. They have good spirits, I think, heading into this game at home against the Bulldogs. They really took it up against the Lions back in Canberra only a fortnight ago. So I think they can do the same here against the Bulldogs. They're probably a bit of a worse team on paper compared to the Lions, of course. And yeah, the Bulldogs, they're in good form, I think, as well. They're now 2 wins in a row. They're very unlucky against Port Adelaide. They had that win there. So honestly, they could have 5 wins in a row, the Bulldogs. I think they've been a very under-the-radar team so far. Maybe they're starting to slightly build, I think, the form of 𝐼𝙗𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐴GAN, you know, 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗄, a few of those players in their midfield as well have been in some good form, and I like them here instantly off the bat. I'm loving the effort of the Giants. They're just going in 100%. A very respectable team, but I don't know if they're going to now go on a roll and start beating opponents left, right, and centre. You still have to remember they probably are a bottom 6 sort of side, so I just think they're going to be pretty exhausted after that win against the Swans. Not like they've played their grand final, but I just think now they might start to drop a few games while still showing some good effort. I just think the class of the Bulldogs get this done on Saturday night, but I'm all for the upset. I just think the Bulldogs forward half, and especially their midfield, is in full momentum at the moment. So the Doggies get it done on the road in Canberra and pick up a good win by 25 points. For the other Saturday night game, we've got a really interesting one here. The Dockers taking on the Hawks at Optus Stadium. Now, the Dockers are in terrible form at the moment. They have been pretty much this whole season. I like to look at Freo just in a bit of an identity crisis at the moment. What is their true brand? What is their true method to win games? It's not the defense from last year. You know, they're trying to play a bit bolder like they did last week against the Lions, but they just had a lot of poor turnovers, and there's a lot of plays on that team that you question, are they at AFL level? So I just think they're all over the shop at the moment. Whilst you got the Hawks, who, yes, they're one of the bottom teams in the competition, but they're a team I think they're playing on a bit better of a wavelength. I think they've played some really good patches of games. They're starting to build a little bit of consistency with playing better for 4 full quarters. Of course, they're still going to play awful left, right, or centre, but they're a team with low expectations, and they're always a football club that can pick up upset wins. And you know what? Oh, this is tempting. Do I go for the upset here? I don't want to discredit the Dockers too much. Their forward line can be inconsistent. It can get clicking for a moment or two. They could go big here and maybe pile on a huge score. Who knows? But I'm just liking the Hawks here. I think their midfield as of late has been quite good. 𝐼𝐻𝐿's been great form. 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿 as well. Will Day back in the team. I thought he was one of the best players on ground against the Bulldogs last week. Lewis back in the team as well. He showed a bit of form too. Oh, it's a difficult one. I think the Dockers should be getting this win at home, but I'm all for the upset sometimes. You know what? We'll go with the Hawks in Perth. I remember last year they played the Dockers. They played a very respectable brand of footy. And even though they went down to the Dockers whilst they were in terrific form at the time, Fremantle, I just think they pick up this upset win here. I don't want to discredit or disrespect any Dockers fans. They should get this win, but I'm just liking the Hawks at the moment. I just think as a team, they're playing a little bit more of a confident brand. So we'll go with the Hawks away. This analysis might be totally all wrong, but I'm all for the upset sometimes. We'll go the Hawks away, pick up a huge win in Perth. We'll go Hawthorn by 10 points. For the Sunday games now, we do have Port Adelaide taking on Essendon at Adelaide Oval. It was only a matter of 3 or so weeks ago that at this same venue, Essendon were able to knock off the Demons in pretty good style, but does this happen here against Port Adelaide, who are certainly now going under the radar? I just think how they are playing. Their defence has been in terrific form, and to be honest, it was a little bit last year. I think they were ranked the #1 defence throughout a patch of games from last year, so that's starting to lift a bit. Even though the Dons were outclassed by a very high experience and probably just better on paper team of Geelong, you still have to give them credit. They hit the ton. I think in that third term, they started to get a bit of momentum their way, and they're only down by, I think, around 20 points throughout a game. They look like on the comeback, and against Port Adelaide, who we don't know yet. Are they the real deal? I think under the radar, they've been very good. But now, with wins they're expecting to get, how will they fare? Hard to go past, though. The defence has been very good as of late. They've had some very good composed and poised plays back there, like Miles Bergman, Dylan Williams, a few of the young players. Horne-Francis in great form. You know, 𝐼𝐴 down forward. Dixon back from injury. How they are playing as well. They're sort of just playing some strong contested footy. They're not playing the most flashiest kind of style, but they're just getting the ball forward. They're just generating scores, generating those goal-scoring opportunities, and kicking goals. And, you know, against Essendon, who I think are quite a decent defence throughout the whole span of this year. They might be licking their lips with a few of the matchups, you know, better than, you know, a bit more easier than Cameron and Hawkins with the likes of Dixon, who is still very hard, of course. I don't know what kind of Essendon will turn up, and are they still the real deal this year? Was it just a bit of a one-off with that performance against the Demons? But I just think in general they have still been playing quite well against good teams. So I think they'll really bring it up to Port Adelaide here. But for me, Power are just in too good a form. I'm really liking how they're rolling at the moment with their contested game, the defence in top tier shape at the moment. 𝐼𝐴's been playing fantastic. We'll go Port Adelaide at home. They should get it done in a good game of footy. We'll go Port Adelaide in a close one, but they might extend the lead out in the end and win by 26 points. And for perhaps the game of the round, the Pies versus My Bloods at 3:20 PM at the MCG. The first time since 2013 that the Pies are finally playing the Swans at the MCG. It would have been 2020, but it wasn't because of COVID. But yeah, I think the Pies at home, MCG, they are one of the hardest teams and in the hardest venue as well, combined to knock off just right off the bat. They play the best brand there. They're terrific defensively. You know, a highly synergy group. The character as well. They're just oozing class and character, everything. It's just such a well-run club and such a respectable team how they are going at the moment, the Pies, and against the Swans, who, look, I think there's obviously a lot of pessimism with the Swans fans and etc. at the moment with how they are rolling. They're playing a poor brand of footy. You know, their contested game's very inconsistent. Their stoppage work is very, very inconsistent as well. So this is where Collingwood can feast. They're very good with turnover. They're very good attacking through the corridor as well. But so are the Swans. They're known for a corridor side, and with the big ground of the G, maybe they turn it up to them. And look, I think the Swans do turn up for this game right off the bat. They've been playing poor, but usually against good opponents, they seem to play their best brand. That's always just been their DNA the past few years, so I think they do turn up to this game. But you're going to have to be really brave for a Swans tip here. For me, I think either the Swans win close or the Pies win convincingly. This is just how I'm looking at this game. It's just one of those games I do think. When I look at the Pies forward line, though, I don't think it's necessarily the top shelf of the competition. They just rely on those sort of like repeated entries and just that high pressure and turnover and the, you know, defensive transition to forward 50 transition, those sort of entries as well. And with still a little bit of a depleted backline, maybe it plays weakness to weakness, I guess you could say. So for me, that could help the Swans with like no Rampy, no Paddy McCartan, etc. The game for me is probably one in the middle. A strong contested game, maybe it's one in the middle, and it just depends on the foot skills, I think, especially as well. Both teams work well with high execution. They take the game on these both sides. But for me, just the Pies at the moment. They're flying at the moment. They're going to be hard to knock off Collingwood at the MCG. Might play it safe for the Pies. I think they get it done convincingly. The Swans do turn up, though. They play a respectable brand. They get things clicking a bit more. But for me, Collingwood are just too good at the moment. We'll go the Pies to pick it up at home in the MCG. Get a bit of revenge from last year's prelim final. And they'll pick it up and win by 28 points. And for the final game here, we do have North Melbourne taking on St Kilda at Marvel Stadium. North are really starting to enter into a bit of a void now with just poor defence. You know, depleted sort of midfield injuries are starting to pile up as well. And let's be honest, I think a few pundits have said this. If it wasn't Alistair Clarkson, whoever was coaching, could probably be out the door at the moment. Just a dismal display. I think their defence has been a huge problem with St Kilda. They're not a team that necessarily scores high, but they love to just, you know, keep teams at bay. So I still think they get it done convincingly. It's a pretty simple tip at the moment. You know, the Saints, I've just felt they were probably outcoached and outclassed by Ken Hinkley on Friday night. It isn't alarm bells or anything from that loss last week. They get back to their best. They get back to their defensively best, and they should feast on North's backline that has been terribly out of form. So the Saints pick up a good win at Marvel Stadium, and for the final game of the round, the Saints win pretty big. We'll go St Kilda by 45 points. So everyone, there were my tips for round 8 of the 2023 AFL season. Thank you very much for tuning in. Starting to fly by the rounds now. You'll love to see it. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you wanted to enjoy today's video. Feel free to comment down below and let me know what you think of my tips, and also feel free to comment down your tips below too. Love to hear every one of your people's thoughts. So everyone, once again, thanks very much for watching today's video, and until next time, I will talk to you later. See you later.